So what happens when politics stops being about people and starts becoming a machine for creating corpses? For Hannah Arendt, this wasn't just some thought experiment. Today, we're going to dive into the mind of a thinker who stared right into the abyss of the 20th century and came back with a powerful defense of what it really means to be human.
Just let that sink in for a second. This was the terrifying new thing about regimes like Nazi Germany or Stalinist Russia. Terror wasn't just a tool they used to get something else. No, terror was the whole point. It was this constant, suffocating pressure designed to break people apart, to isolate them, and to completely erase the idea of a shared world.
The old words just didn't cut it anymore. Calling it tyranny or dictatorship, it didn't even come close to capturing the sheer scale of this new kind of evil. This was a total break from the past, a complete rupture in history. And to understand it, we needed a whole new way of thinking.
And this is where Hannah Arendt comes in. She had to flee the Nazi regime herself, so this was deeply, deeply personal for her. Her life's work wasn't just some academic exercise. It was more like a rescue mission. She was trying to pull the very ideas of humanity and politics out of the wreckage. So let's start with her diagnosis.
All right, first up, a new kind of evil. So what was it that made this so different? To really get what Arendt is saying, we've got to dig into her diagnosis of this political disease she called totalitarianism.
Okay, so here's the really scary logic she pinpointed. Totalitarian ideologies, Nazism's master race, Stalinism's class struggle, they offered one single simple story that explained everything. They claimed they had cracked the code of history or nature. And once you buy into that idea, then you can justify absolutely any atrocity. It's just speeding up the inevitable. It completely replaces the messy, difficult act of actual thinking with this cold, hard, simple logic.
The result was what Arendt called mass loneliness. When people are uprooted, when they feel isolated and disconnected from each other, they become the perfect audience for an ideology that promises them a purpose, no matter how monstrous that purpose is. To fight this, Arendt knew she couldn't just offer a different political party. No, she had to go way deeper, all the way back to the basic things that make up a human life.
So to figure out what totalitarianism had actually destroyed, Arendt first had to define what it meant to be fully human to begin with. And she did this with this incredible framework for understanding human activity, which she called the vita activa, or the active life.
She basically broke down our active life into three fundamental parts. Each one is distinct, and each one is absolutely essential. You can almost picture it like a pyramid, with each level building on the last, all the way up to the peak of what makes us, us. Let's break them down. Okay, so at the very bottom of the pyramid, we have labor. This is all the stuff we have to do just to stay alive, right? Farming, cooking, cleaning, all those necessary, repetitive tasks. This is what we have in common with every other animal on the planet. It connects us to the cycles of nature. The things we make here are meant to be used up right away.
All right, moving up a level, we get to work. Now, this is different. This is the activity of the builder, the craftsman, the artist. See, unlike the food from our labor, which is gone in an hour, the things we work on are built to last. A table, a house, a piece of art. They create this stable, human-made world, kind of like building the stage for the play of our lives.
And finally, we get to the very top, the peak of the pyramid. And this is action. For Arendt, this is the whole ballgame. This is what makes us uniquely human. It's our amazing, almost miraculous ability to just start something new, to do something nobody saw coming. Through action, we reveal to the world who we are, not just what we are. And this is key. It can only happen when we're together with other people, in public, using our words and our deeds. For Arendt, that is politics. That is freedom.
Now, this huge focus on action as the heart of politics, it led her to totally flip the script on one of the biggest concepts out there, power.
Let me ask you, what's the difference between power and violence? We use these words together all the time, right? A dictator uses violence to stay in power. But Arendt would say, nope, you've got it completely wrong. For her, power and violence weren't just different, they were total opposites. If you have one, you can't have the other.
So look at this breakdown. True power, for Arendt, isn't something one person can have. It only pops into existence in the space between people when they decide to act together. It's the energy that comes from agreement and shared promises. Violence, on the other hand, it's all about tools. It needs a weapon. And its whole purpose is to destroy that space between people, to shut down the speech and action that are the lifeblood of politics.
So just think about the huge implication here. A government that has to constantly use violence to get its way is, by this definition, completely powerless. It's basically a giant flashing sign that says, we've lost the people's consent. Violence is what you turn to precisely when your power has failed. So that massive, brutal totalitarian state, it's not a display of ultimate power, it's a monument to its absolute absence.
Okay, so these ideas from Arendt were absolutely groundbreaking. But, as you can probably imagine, they also got a lot of pushback. Her work has sparked some really intense debates that are still going on today.
For starters, you have the feminist critique. They looked at her sharp line between the public political world and the private household and said, hold on a minute. They argued the personal is political, and that power dynamics inside the family have historically been used to keep women out of the public sphere. Then, Marxist thinkers argued that you just can't talk about political freedom without talking about economic reality. For them, separating politics from poverty and exploitation was a major blind spot. And finally, some just felt her idealization of the ancient Greek city-state wasn't a practical model for our huge, complex, modern world.
But, despite these really important critiques, Hannah Arendt's legacy is profound. She forces us to stop and ask a fundamental question. What is politics actually for? Is it just a game about managing things and fighting for dominance, or is it something more? For her, it was our highest calling, the shared, difficult, but ultimately amazing activity of creating a common world where freedom can actually show up. And that leaves us with a pretty big question for our own time. In this digital age of social media, filter bubbles, and intense polarization, are we building new public squares where real action can happen? Or is our technology just pushing us further into our private lives, focused on labor and consumption and isolating us even more from each other? Arendt's work doesn't give us the easy answers, but it absolutely gives us the essential questions to start thinking for ourselves.